So, hello everyone. I am the student co-host for tonight's Festival's Masterclass panel. I'm an NYU music business student, and I'm also a co-captain within Culture Fusion Agency's Campus Ambassador program that they just launched this year. I'll be moderating the student questions at the end, so make sure you put your questions in the Q&A box so we can take a look at those. In the meantime, my other co-host, Shirley Ju, will be moderating the rest of the panel. So today's panelists, we have such an incredible group for you guys today, and you guys are going to learn so much, so make sure to take notes. We have Jen Hirsch, who is the VP of Productions at Red Rock Entertainment. We have Wolf and Rothstein, who are the management team for Childish Gambino. Brandon, I'm so sorry, I don't know how to say your last name. Is it
No worries. McCahern. Thank
McKay?
you.
I like that. She's the founder of the Broccoli City Festival, and we have Cheryl Pagliarani. Wow, these are hard last names, you guys. Pagliarani?
Very good, yes.
Oh, thank you. Okay, she is the agent at United Talent Agency, and she's also done Posty Fest for Post Malone, which is really, really cool. Lastly but not least, we have Leslie Olenek, who is the VP of Touring at Live Nation Entertainment. So at this point, I would love it if the panelists could give like a brief bio about themselves. Leslie, why don't we start off with you?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. So my experience has been on the promoter side, not just in venues and specific markets, but also in festivals. My first festival that I had the opportunity to work on was the Odd Future Carnival in 2012. I helped build that with Tyler, the creator, worked on it for about 6 years, and then decided I wanted to make a move into touring. I came over to Live Nation in 2017, going into 2018, and started working in touring. A couple months into my time at Live Nation, I was hanging out in the lobby with some of my coworkers after work, and my boss, Michael, was sitting with Pharrell and Ron Lafitte, his manager, and he waved me over, introduced me to Pharrell, told me that he wanted to do his own festival in Virginia Beach, where he was from. They were asking about my experience working with Tyler. Obviously, Tyler and Pharrell have a relationship together. I thought that was the end of that conversation, and then a month later, they asked me if I would jump in and book his festival, which was going to be in 4 months. I said, absolutely, I'm up for the challenge. I tried to convince them to do one day. Pharrell has big dreams. He wanted 3 days. So we pulled it off and actually ended up selling out the festival. And it was a huge success. At the same time, I was fortunate to rekindle my relationship with Chad and Fam and Donald and work on Pharaohs in New Zealand, which was the second time Donald did a very special curated festival, which Chad can talk about, and Jen had experience working on as well. So that was pretty awesome. Got to take my family out to New Zealand for his festival, which was super intimate. And also have had a little bit of experience with some other artist curated festivals. 88 Rising did their festival called Head in the Clouds. They're a collective, an Asian hip hop collective. We did that in LA 2 years in a row, and also worked with some other smaller acts like Low End Theory and Selection on some festivals in LA too. So thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. I guess I'll just start picking them up. Jen, can you go next?
Yeah, totally. Nice to meet everybody. Excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation. So my background is not as healthy as Leslie's, because Leslie's just an amazing rock star. But I've been in this business for over 20 years. I started off in the nonprofit sector doing nonprofit like galas and charity events, and that was all great, but just obviously wasn't very profitable, and it wasn't challenging up to a certain point. So then I sort of moved into private events and on a larger scale. And one of the things that has always been of interest to me is production and everything that happens in live on stage production. So I started moving towards working with the Live Nation family prior to being with Red Rock full time. Red Rock itself is a production partner of Live Nation. So we not only do Live Nation projects, but we also do our own projects. And when I first stepped in with them, we were doing world premieres around the world for big movie film studios. A lot of them had kind of gotten bored of the day-to-day, just step and repeat, carpets. And we presented like, hey, we're Live Nation and we have the ability to go anywhere in the world and have the reach to a bunch of Live Nation staff and a bunch of Live Nation resources like vendors. Why don't we do some amazing, unforgettable experience world premieres for your films in very iconic locations like the Vienna Opera House or on the Bay of Hong Kong. And we're gonna not only bring probably the artists, a lot of it had to do with music, which is why the Live Nation tie-in came in, is we brought the actual soundtrack artist to that premiere and we did the premiere and then did an incredible concert afterwards for the fans. So that lasted for us for a good few years. And then we started working on these really incredible artist curated projects. And when I officially came on board for Red Rock, I was handed a binder by our president and he said, I need you to head out to Joshua Tree and meet these guys. They're going to talk to you about doing a concert with Childish Gambino in a blow-up dome. And that's all I knew. And I drove out to Joshua Tree and met Chad and Fam. And from there, we've been partnering the last couple of years, doing some incredibly artist-curated projects with these guys. In addition to working with Cheryl's team and executing Posty Fest for the last couple of years in Dallas, and a few others. So that's kind of where I'm at today. And working with Leslie as well with the second iteration of what was supposed to be Something in the Water 2 until our friend COVID came along. Not our friend, just kidding, not our friend.
Or enemy.
Or enemy.
I love how you guys are all so connected with each other in the industry, especially like in the Live Nation family and just touring in general. I think that's really awesome. Brandon, why don't we go to you next?
No doubt. Hey, how y'all doing? What's good? My name is Brandon. I'm the founder of a brand called Broccoli City. We started a little festival. Basically, it was going to be a Earth Day festival, an urban Earth Day festival. We did our first one actually in Los Angeles in like 2010 during the blog era, having folks like the Dom Kennedys of the world, Pat Div, Kendrick Lamar, at that time in 2010. Then we ended up taking the festival to Washington, D.C., and we went from 5,000 to 35,000 in a matter of a couple years. I also have had the pleasure of working with Fam and Chad as well. So super duper cool to be on this panel with those guys. And Leslie is the OG big homie. So I appreciate being on this panel. So that's me.
Cheryl?
Oh, sorry, did you say me next?
Yeah.
So I was like, wait, say my name or someone else? Hi, I'm Cheryl. Thanks everybody again for having me. I'm really excited to be here as well. But I'm an agent at United Talent Agency and our music department. Actually got my start as an assistant at William Morris, and I was lucky enough to work for a really big agent there and got to work on a number of different artists. And so did that for a few years and ultimately ended up moving over to CAA and was there as an agent and a booker. But, I really wanted to be able to build my own roster and grow my own business. And so I took a leap of faith and moved over to a smaller agency called the Agency Group and started off there with absolutely no clients. It was a small agency. It wasn't full service. They didn't do the film and television and branding and things that you see today now that, every agency really has and needs to service their clients. But it was right when I made that switch that I met Post Malone about, I think it was like 2 weeks after he had just put out White Iverson, and that was actually my very first client on my own. So from there, it was a few months after I had moved over to the Agency Group that we got acquired by UTA. So that's how I came to be at UTA. So I've been at the company now for about 5 years, and since meeting Post, my roster has grown into, I represent 21 Savage, Trippie Redd, Dominic Fike, St. John, YG, Tyga, a number of artists across our hip hop platform. But, you know, as an RA, it's of course looking over everything in the touring aspect of their careers, you know, shows, but also anything that they want to do that touches the agency. So Post Malone says, I want to build a festival. We figure out how to build him a festival, and then you have Pussy Fest. So it's everything from that, or, you know, if 21 Savage wants to build a financial literacy program, we helped him do that. The things like, you know, in the gaming space with Dominic Fike playing, you know, his show in Fortnite. So I really oversee every aspect of anything my clients do that can touch any area of the agency and manage all of that for them. So thanks for having me.
That's an insane roster. Our chat is definitely freaking out for that.
I had to write something down so I didn't forget, because I usually get put on the spot and I can remember 2 names and my mind goes blank.
All right. One is Chad. Oh, you're muted.
There you go. Thank you. Sorry. Hi, everybody. I'm Chad. I am one half of Wolf and Rothstein. So I'm the Wolf. My partner Fam is Rothstein, and so together we manage Childish Gambino. We also run a small development record label. And have a couple artists on that as well. I met Fam in 2014, and we were on tour together with Childish Gambino. Prior to that, I had been a tour manager. Out of college, I just started touring with bands, and small ones at first. Met some really cool agents along the way. One agent in particular, J. Bo Lewis, who's over at United Talent now, UTA, and helping run that music department. He put me in touch with Donald in 2010, and Donald was really small at the time. He had just done like some mixtapes in the music space, and so we went and got coffee. We talked for a second, and he was just kind of fascinated by like every detail that went into touring, because he had this idea that he wanted to go out on the road and he wanted to get a band, and he had this whole idea for this set where he was going to do comedy at first and then run it into music, and had this whole section where he talked to himself on a projector, like via FaceTime, and he was from the future. He sounded a little crazy, to be honest. When I first met him, I was like, your mind moves quick, and this seemed, but I quickly figured out that he actually had everything already dialed in. He had already had an editor from Community that had like done these films. He just needed the infrastructure, the projector, and needed to know how to put it together for stage. And you know, he already had picked out the band. He had these guys that he had seen playing out. There's this neo soul band in LA, Beverly Hills, that he found, really young kids, and he just needed the deals negotiated with them to get them on the road to work with him, you know. And so that was really fascinating to me, because I had been working with pretty big bands in the indie pop space, like Passion Pit. I was their tour manager for a while. M83, I was their production manager for a while. And so I'd been doing these bigger venues, these big artists, but I'd never seen an artist that had that much creative vision, but also was so eager to just do it, you know, get into it and just start doing things. And so that kind of fascinated me. So I started to become his tour manager and help him early on, you know, start to build the Childish Gambino brand in the touring space. I saw names like Leslie, Olnick, and on the deal memos that we were doing every night, settling shows, and all these, you know, bigger people in the industry that I hadn't met yet. And now today we work with hand in hand on a lot of this stuff. So this is a really exciting panel to be on. Brandon, we played the Broccoli City Festival on Donald's run last year through festivals, which is super cool festival in DC, like probably the hippest lineup of the day. You know, it was really, really special to be there. So this is really awesome to be a part of. And thanks for having us.
All right, thank you guys for all of your bios. You guys are so incredible, and I know their students were stoked for this panel. I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Shirley, and she's going to moderate the rest of the questions. Until the students, make sure you guys put your student questions in the Q&A, and we'll try to answer those at the end.
Great. Those are all amazing intros, by the way. First question, what adjustments have you all considered making to ensure your festivals occur next season? Have you all considered virtual festivals?
I mean, I can just jump in quickly. I don't think any one of us can predict what's going to happen. I think, you know, we're making plans for 21 and hope that it will, you know, happen, but also being realistic and, you know, potentially pivoting to 22. I think in, you know, not to get too much into COVID, because I feel like there's so many other great things we could be talking about, but just, you know, as promoters and agents and managers and production managers, we just need to be prepared for the worst and be able to pivot and make backup plans and backup plans to our backup plans. So, you know, some artists want to go out next year and other artists are wanting to hold off till 22. Depends on if they have content coming out, or, you know, depends if they have families and different things going on in their lives. So, you know, we're still all doing our jobs day to day and maintaining everything that we've been working on, you know, what our responsibilities are and whatnot. But I think we're just taking it one day at a time.
For sure.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just jump in from the production side. You know, obviously with, you know, when this all happened, at least everybody in our world, you know, in my industry was, how do we pivot? How do we pivot? How do we take our skill set and pivot to a, first and foremost, I'll still have jobs and still have things to do, because nobody knew back in March how long this was going to last. You know, virtual concerts came up as something, and I think what I've seen since March, some have been incredibly successful. You know, down to, I think Chris Martin was probably the first one that I saw do something in his living room for Global Citizen, down to really incredibly produced events like, and Cheryl, I've been involved with something recently with Fortnite, and artists now getting involved with gaming. So I've seen sort of the gamut and things in between. From our perspective as a production company, we really, like Leslie said, we want to focus on getting back to how things were. We want to focus on looking at festivals we hope will come back in late, you know, 2021 if possible. You know, and what does that look like? Does it mean reduced capacities? Probably. Does it mean, you know, increased staff to make sure there's some sort of COVID compliancy for whatever that's going to look like in the fall? So from a Red Rock side, it's not necessarily jumping right into a virtual arena, but it's really starting to think ahead and start planning for when we get the green light, how can we do this and how can we do it that'll have, the fans will have an incredible live experience, because that's what it's about. But how do we do it safely, which is a whole new topic for all of us.
I think, and just to add on to what you said, you know, and part of the second part of your question, and that, are we thinking about doing virtual festivals? I mean, I know when the world we're living in now, where virtual is really all you can do, for us, it's really about, it's hard to create a festival without the experience, right? Like, it's cool to put something on digitally, but, you know, for Post and what he is, when you walk into Posty Fest, it's really like walking into his world. And, you know, there's so much branding and activation that's done that's so authentic to him. You know, it's not cheesy or over branded in any way, but, you know, our activations with Call of Duty and Bud Light and Nerf and the fun things that are really make him who he is, I think would be really hard to capture in a digital sense. So, I mean, for us, yeah, it's just kind of figuring out, will it be safe? When will it be safe? And how can we come back, you know, stronger than ever and just make the experience even better for the fans?
Definitely. Have you guys seen a huge shift in procedures and regulations in music festivals? You look at scandals like the Fiery Festival, Block Festival, EDC.
I mean, Fire Festival, I mean, I think that one was a weird one to begin with.
Right.
I think, you know, and Chad and Fam, maybe they can speak to it, or the agents, but I think when you're doing a show with somebody, whether it's a club show or you know, an arena show or a festival, you know, I think you want to make sure you're working with people who are reputable, who, you know, who are going to take care of your artists. I think safety is a huge, you know, usually the number one priority, I think, for all of us. Doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. Because at the end of the day, like, we want people to have a good time, but we want them to be safe. We want to make sure the artists are happy. So I think just being careful who you're getting into business with. Just because somebody sends you a big fat check for a slot doesn't mean that they know what they're doing. You know, everybody wants to be a promoter, but it doesn't mean that they actually know how to put on a show or a festival safely, and that it's the best thing for the artist.
That's right. That's accurate. That's very true. I remember when that was happening. Now you're speaking about that, we got one of those like calls, you know, like one of those emails. Hey, there's this awesome event. Donald might want to be a part of it. You know, like we'll, you know, private jet, whole 9 yards. Like come down. We'll, you know, we'll take care of you. And I gave it a, you know, I got on the phone with someone. I forget who it was, but you know, I gave it the once, you know, the one time look just to see what they were talking about. And you know, I don't think you need to be in any business long to kind of get what you're talking about, Leslie. That like, you know, like that feeling, like you know who you're getting into business with a little bit. And this person, it just didn't. The things just didn't add up. You know, like the fee. You know, there's no fee, but we'll pay for everything. We'll take care of it. And then just beyond that, looking at some of the production and how they're putting it together. And I remember saying to my girlfriend at the time, like, I don't even know how this is gonna work, like financially. Like they have these villas and this pricing. It just like didn't really feel right. And so we passed on it. And it was funny because right around that time we were talking to Jen on this chat right now from Red Rock about putting on, you know, our festivals and stuff. And I had just kind of gotten the sense, you know, of all the procedures and really all the protocol and really how much it takes to put on your own kind of festival, no matter how many people are coming. And you know, there's a lot, and it just felt to me like there's no way this really is adding up. And we had to be smart and kind of back away from that and just kind of watch that disaster unfold, unfortunately. But I think all of us probably on the call like saw that happening. We know things like that or situations like that come to artist managers or agents, and that's kind of part of our job, is just sifting this stuff out and going what's real, what's not, and you know, what do we spend our time on, and you know, what ideas make sense. But it's kind of a weird world.
Definitely. Anyone else?
I think they covered it perfectly. I mean, we actually had an offer in for Post to Play Fire Festival, and I remember we went back to them to try to get it up and get a little bit more money out of them, and they said no. And so we were like, all right, forget it, we're not going to do it, and just kind of walked away from it. And I'll never forget the day that it all came out of people just being stuck there, that we were so happy we didn't confirm it. But yeah, I mean, I think what Leslie says is perfect. It's, you know, we really have to do our due diligence and vet everything out when you're working with a promoter that you don't know, just to make sure that your artists are protected and that you're putting them in the best scenarios and situations possible, and that everything's going to be safe.
And the only thing I'll add to that is I think it's for us, we sort of are in the middle as a production company between the promoter and the artist representation. But from our perspective, we also worry about the fans. So we're looking at the full picture to make sure it's also a great scenario and will be a good experience for the fans as well.
Definitely. Sorry.
I'm sorry, real quick before we move on, I just want to introduce Fam, my partner, my business partner, who joined in the meantime while we were on. I think he's by phone right now.
Hey, Fam.
Because he lives in the wilderness, but I wanted to introduce him and give him a chance to say hi to everybody.
What's up, fam?
What's up, Brandon? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you breaking up, man. Good to hear you, though.
I'm avoiding the fires, man. So don't mind me. I'm just listening in, and if you can hear me when it's possible, I'm grateful, and if not, everybody has it covered because I'm listening in.
I love it. All right. Next question. What does your project flow look like? What systems or applications do you use, and what would you recommend we get familiar with in college?
I would say people, you know what I mean? Get familiar with people, you know what I mean? Just have your talking game up, I suppose. Computer-wise, I would say Basecamp. I like Basecamp. It's the truth to me. But I don't know. I would say my project flow is people. Just how like me and Fam connected real quick. Like that was beautiful. Like I'm so excited to see that dude. But I say all that to say just keeping a good relationship with just everybody being a decent human being goes so far. Me and Leslie talked about this on a panel we were on before. I don't want to go into it, so I sound like super nice guy all the time, but people are awesome. And I think
networking is super important, building relationships with people. I quickly got to, jump in on Donald's touring career at Live Nation because of my relationship with Chad and Fam when I was at Golden Voice, and I had promoted his shows in LA and took care of him when he came to Camp Flog Gnaw, made sure he got in, just basic things that, were helpful, and, they trusted me. And so when I started, took me under their wing and were like, hey, we want Leslie to work on, Donald's tour. I think it's relationships and networking and, just really, really working those relationships.
I think too, if there's anything that you guys have going on, within your school or within the area that can get you experience just in working in the event space in general. I know when I was in college, I worked on the street team for a radio station. And so I would be at different events all the time. And it kind of just gets you, gets you experience, it gets you relationships in the business, it gets you kind of just a foundation for where to grow. I mean, every step that I've taken has really led me in the next direction. So had I not been working in certain places, if I'd not been in a certain place at a certain time, my path definitely could have been completely different. So I think you should just find as much to get involved in as you possibly can to gain experience, whether you're getting paid or you're doing it for free. I did a lot of free work in my early days.
Sure. Oh, and another thing to add, make sure you're treating everybody with respect, because you never know. He could be smaller than you now, but then in 2-3 years, you know what I'm saying? And he remember when you treated me like dirt? And you damn, you know what I mean? So make sure you treat people with respect and dignity, no matter if they're, a custodian. I said custodian versus janitor. I'm trying to be nice all the time. But I'm saying, treating people nice. It goes a long way.
Yeah. For sure. I don't know, maybe Jen, you can talk on the production side. There's a lot of opportunity for people to do, festival, seasonal work.
So everything that you all have said absolutely is on my list. Relationships are important. I think, Cheryl, what you said is really important. As a point I was going to make later is if you can get in at the most entry level, it's great, because I think one of the things that when somebody new comes to us and they want to work on the production team and they want to work in a festival, and I start them kind of at a lower position, and obviously sometimes they think they can do more. It's so good to start wherever you can, because the more you learn about what everybody else does around you and you see kind of then what the next level up is, the more you have an understanding of how everything works as a whole. So to just come in and, say that I want to start here, well, I always recommend start a little lower, because if you kind of understand the chain of how things work and what people do, and that's really important. It actually helps you understand the bigger picture of the whole planning process. I think, as Brandon mentioned, there's sort of computer skills, Basecamp, Excel. Being a really strong budgeter. Being able to negotiate. That's a big part of my world. Being very organized. You have to run a really strict timeline related to how things happen, when things happen, but that also affects the financial side of it. So strong organizational skills, strong negotiation skills, strong, budgeting. But really I will say more important, at least in my opinion, is what you guys all commented on. It really is about relationships, because you can have an incredible relationship with someone like Cheryl and Leslie at this level, but then you also have to have the same type of respect and relationship with the guy who's cleaning the porta-johns, to be quite honest with you, because you just never know when you're going to need anyone and everyone in between. So that's that.
Oh, does someone else want to add? No? All right. What have been some of the highlights during your career path?
This panel, yo. Having Childish Gambino at Broccoli City 2019 was crazy. Shout out to Fam. That goes back to relationships. This is Donald Glover at the height of his height. You know what I mean? And coming and doing little old Broccoli City, I was like, oh my God, oh. You know what I mean? It was magnificent. And I appreciate them so much. And yet again, that goes back to the first question about the relationships. But that was definitely a highlight for us to have him at that time.
I was gonna say Pharaoh's. For us, it was Pharaoh's in Joshua Tree with Jen and putting that thing together, because it was for me, that was such a first time throwing this event, having this many people commit that much time and of their money and everything, and you're really hoping it goes well, and it did, but it had its hiccups as well, as everything does, and like you remember those things now, and that was, for me, that was super special to watch Donald perform 3 nights in a row, and the set just get a little bit better each night, and then all the kind of technology that went into that, to put that together, for these fans that then got to sleep out under the stars and kind of hang for that whole festival is super, super, super exciting, super dope.
Yeah, it's so hard to pick just one or two. I mean, for me, a lot of my career has really just been about artist development, and I've always been, the reason I do this has always been to get in early. So, it could be something big like pulling off Posty Fest, but honestly, it's a win for me if I have a client sell out the Roxy their first time, being able to be a part of the growth every time they hit that next milestone, it's incredible. It's like the best feeling, right? So I can name a bunch, you have an artist play Madison Square Garden, of course it's great, but then this year for me, I mean, I started working with St. John 4 years ago before he ever put out the first version of Roses, and was thought to myself when I first heard it, oh my God, this is incredible, you're out of here. And it didn't go the first time, but to see, all the success come full circle and what happened this year, and it just in a remix going crazy, and that blowing up, and just somebody you've been grinding with for years, and seeing them really get the shine they deserve, it's definitely been a big highlight for me this year. But every time my clients have a win, it just feels like a win for me too.
I love that. I actually love seeing the Roxy sold out, by the way, as a concert goer.
They're always the craziest shows, right? Like if artists play them at the right time, I see so often artists will come out and there'll be so much buzz and they'll want to jump the step, right? They'll want to go into the bigger room or get the bigger look first. But for me, I always say it's more about how many people can't get into your first show than can get into your first show. You want the line of people down the block who are talking about it and couldn't actually get in. So it's a moment, I remember being at SOB. I see your poster in the back. I remember being at SOBs when Drake played, and I will never forget that show.
I remember at the Roxy when Roy Woods played and he brought out Drake, and everyone was like, what the fuck is going on? That was great.
That's so dope.
Who wants to go next?
I can go next. I think, like I talked about earlier, being able to go to New Zealand for Donald's Festival with my family was pretty incredible. It's a beautiful place, and just to be in an intimate setting with my kids and my husband and, a bunch of people that I care about, it was super special. Also, it was bittersweet for me to lose Camp Flog Gnaw when I came over to Live Nation, but then being able to work hand in hand with Pharrell on his festival in his community, which he's super passionate about supporting, and watching him on stage and standing next to Tyler, the Creator, watching Pharrell just kind of put everything into full circle. And that was pretty awesome to see. It was the next step for me.
I'll go in next and just say I think the highlight has actually been the last few years. Getting the opportunity to work with these incredible people and being trusted, having Leslie and Cheryl and Chad come to Red Rock and entrust us with their artist's vision. It's an immense responsibility, and it's an honor to have an artist bring us what's in here and in his or her heart, and having us bring it to life for them and for their fans. So we're incredibly proud to have that opportunity bestowed upon us by this incredible team.
Chad and Fam.
Oh, maybe Fam wants to
Oh,
answer.
okay, you
Yeah.
went right. Fam, best moment?
I think it's when I gave him a hard hat at Guava. His own personal hard hat.
That's what I was gonna say. I said, well, my favorite Fam moments are the moments where he crosses into my world and takes over my job, which is sometimes very necessary. Like he puts on the cones and yeah, headphones, and then the walkie-talkie, and he's just like running the production with all the crew and just like looking at everybody with his like, skeptical eye, which is sometimes great. Like Lollapalooza, I was not there, and Fam took charge and came back the next weekend to the next festival, and everybody said, "Hey, man, that was the best show that we've ever played, and you weren't there." So I think that speaks for itself. Fam can do everything. So his best highlight is running the show.
What are some tips or advice for someone who's just starting out or wants to pursue a career in the music industry?
Man, be interested in it. You know what I mean? I know that sounds like super simple, but like if you're gonna be interested in pursuing a career in the music industry, be interested. Get into it, like read, learn more about it, know what you're talking about, have something to bring to it. Because I think like getting in is definitely very difficult. Like, but once you're in, you can navigate it how you want. I really do think it's like there's people have that ability, and nowadays, everybody's an email away. Like Jen was saying, be organized with your email, be organized with your outreach, who you're hitting up, and how you're hitting them up. Don't just come to somebody and say, "Hey, I want to be your intern," because you look cool and you have a good job. Like, know what, bring something to the table, and be interested in what they're interested in. I think that's like the biggest thing that somebody told me back in the day was like, just get in. Like once you're in, you'll figure it out. So like I wanted to get into music, so I was like, I'm gonna be in tour management, but like I gotta start at the bottom. So like what's the shittiest job in tour management? Like what's the first one? And a lot of people said merch. And I don't want to sell merch, but like and I didn't even know I was good at it, but like I knew I had to get in. So like I learned Excel so that I could have like the spreadsheet to go along and be super diligent and organized. And then I was able to offer at least that skill set to another tour manager and say, hey, can I come out and sell some merch, and can I start to learn the ways of the road? And then I was interested in everything that they were doing. So I just kind of absorbed it and tried to learn more and more and more and move up, and meet people. And and like Brandon was saying earlier with the relationships, like if you're interested in something and the other person is above you, then you're forging a relationship. That's genuine. You're bringing something to the table. You're learning from them. People like to talk about themselves. People like to give you their story. So listen, and take that in and learn from it. And I think a lot of that, you have the power once you're in, to navigate to where you do want to be. If it's not selling merchandise, if you want to be a manager or an agent, or be around those people, proximity matters, and then learn from them.
I agree with that 100%. See, listening obviously is key. Going back to what Chad was saying, research, and then just being a decent human being, man. Like I know I keep saying that, and I'm gonna keep saying it actually, but adding value. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that simple. Like it's a barter system, right? Like even with you and your friends in school, you know what I mean? Like one person could talk to the girls and the other one could do everybody's homework or whatever the case may be. But y'all hung with each other because it was a barter system. I hope that makes sense. But it's like when you go to the club. Well, you can't do that no more. Well, all my analogies are fucked up now. But it's basically about, adding value. Going back to what Chad said. You know what I mean? Like I really think that's key.
I think, Chad, you said a key term, proximity matters. I think that is so spot on. I think the only thing I'm going to add to what you guys said is just ask questions. If you're no matter what level you got in on, if you see something that totally interests you or you're curious, ask questions. It's nothing better. There's no better way to learn something than from the person who's doing it. So that's what I have to add.
I mean, I would just say trust your path and don't be afraid of failure. I remember, when I was in school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't even know what an agent was. I just knew I wanted to be in the music business, and that, you know, I loved music and everything around it. I didn't know all the ins and outs of what all of the jobs were. And when I found the William Morris trainee program and I was applying to it, I still didn't even really have that much knowledge of what the actual job meant. And when I went for my interview, you had to take a test at that time to work there, which to me, I think thinking back on it now is crazy, but it was a spelling, typing, data entry, and grammar test. And to make a long story short, I failed their test and they walked me out of the building and told me that I could never work there. They didn't even interview me. And so I thought I was like the biggest failure in life and my life was over. And I remember going back to the person who referred me and got me the interview and just saying, I know I'm meant to be there. I feel it. I'm supposed to have a job. And he knew an agent there, called and gave me such a good recommendation that she agreed to meet with me around HR. So I got a call one night at 8 o'clock at night saying, can you come meet Carol Lewis? And I go to an interview at 8 o'clock and talked to her for an hour and she said, I'll see you in 2 weeks, and hired me. So I skipped, by failing that test, I skipped being in the mailroom. I skipped being a trainee. I skipped having to, you know, do the agency, fight people to get on a desk. And I started off immediately just working for who was at that time the biggest hip hop agent in business. So don't be afraid to fail, and just know if you do, it's probably leading you in another direction, and just trust where you're going, and then just don't take no for an answer. That would be my advice.
That's dope.
Awesome. I think now we'll dive into the student questions. So I guess the first one I'll start off with, what's the best advice you can give a new artist manager?
Bam.
Back in a different landscape. The best advice, I mean, I said it in the chat earlier about proximity in terms of visibility, building relationships, getting as close as you can to whoever you need to get close to, mentorship. I know Chad, sometimes he'll just, you know, have a 4 a.m. question, and then the next day it turns into a text to Leslie, you know, like just to be able to have as many references as possible. Earlier in the chat, Jen mentioned relationships, and I think we keep saying that because even as small as like getting a permit matters. So I think about being intentional in the way you build relationships. I think you have to have compassion for yourself because you're gonna fuck shit up as a manager. But I think also think of yourself as a translator when it comes to artists, because artists usually have some sort of vision in mind, and you have to work as the communicator / buffer between the artists and the masses. So think about yourself as a filter and be as open as possible, but also try to figure out your lens and your point of view. So when the artist is saying something, you're open and you're listening, but also, you know, those moments where you might not agree and you can communicate clearly enough that you guys both have that same outcome in mind. So you're able to kind of streamline it and have that outcome kind of like, you know, be executed on, you know, in any scenario.
That was spot on.
He summed it up perfectly. Honesty is really key in all that, like just being honest with yourself and being honest with the artist and being able to communicate with everybody super clearly. Like fam is often the bearer of bad news, you know, because he just has that relationship with Donald they built through their honest opinions of each other and how, you know, how to move the project forward. And sometimes you have to say really tough stuff to the artist, and I think that doesn't change if they're a small artist or a big artist. I think it's difficult at all levels to do that and to be able to kind of look at a situation and then like Pam said, be able to translate out to the outside world what the best, you know, with what the best outcome is in service of an artist. So, you know, when you're just getting into management, just being able to be useful, you know, to that artist, and then be clear with them about kind of what you're expecting and what you forecast is going to happen, and when things don't line up, you know, be accountable.
Would anyone else want to hop on that? Okay, we'll move on. So how do up-and-coming artists that have live performance experience get on an agency's radar? And do you book artists based off of their digital footprints and streams?
that one. Honestly, no. Like I said earlier, all of my artists have been from day one. But I mean, I really just go after what I love. I mean, how does it get on my radar? So many different ways. I mean, people will send me stuff. I was an only child until I was 14, so I'm really lucky that I have siblings now that are in college. So they tip me off to a lot of different things. But you know, I've had artists that I've started working with since before they've ever even put a song out. I think you really just need to go with your gut and whether you believe that person has real talent and has what it takes, and you can see a future career for them and be a part of helping them get there. Of course, it's nice when something comes in and you're able to find something that already has traction and things going on. And of course, it makes things easier for us. But for me personally, it doesn't have to already be on a trajectory. If I really love something, then I would work with it from the ground up. But of course, you know, there's key things you want to look for. Does the artist have a real team in place? Are there people other than me in their lives that can make moves? But whether or not they're, you know, on the charts or have high streaming numbers isn't the ultimate deciding factor for me.
What she said.
Okay, so this one actually comes from Spain, which is really cool. They said that they noticed that some 2021 festivals are being announced in Europe. Do you think that there will be an industry-wide focus to book more international markets now and in the future? And do you see the pandemic as kind of like an opportunity to reimagine festivals such as greener, or would you plan for similar contingencies, etc.?
There are a lot of festivals all over the world, big and small, and I think I don't really see that changing. So I think we'll leave it at that. Next question.
All right. So someone asked, sorry, that's the wrong question. How do you balance being persistent and being pushy when you're starting off and trying to make connections with people at larger agencies and stuff like that?
I think it goes back to like what Brandon and Fam and I think most of us were talking about, is doing things with intention, not just because it's cool or because you know, you want to be in the industry because you think it's cool. I mean, this is a lifestyle. This is not just a job. Like, you know, I started off in this industry single and working 2 jobs, you know, bartending at night and trying to make ends meet. And now I have 2 kids and my husband's a tour manager. Like, this is a lifestyle. It's intense, but you know, if you want to be in it and if you understand it and if you are, you know, eager to learn and no job be too big or too small, then anything's possible. So I think persistence is good, but I think it needs to be done with intention. If you're interested in management, then, you know, go down that route. If you're interested in promoting, you know, then figure out a way to get in on the promoter side. It doesn't have to be working for a promoter. It could be working at a venue and working at the box office. And then you do a great job at the box office and they're like, hey, we actually need help in the ticketing office at Live Nation. You've worked at the box office. Like, would you be interested in being an assistant? Or you see an opportunity open up. So I think it's figuring out kind of which area of the business you want to get into and focusing on that. And making sure you're passionate about it.
Going back to what Fam has said a little earlier about self-love, because you gon' fuck up. That's a real thing too. Making sure that you're, you know, loving yourself and increasing your value in the marketplace while you're being pushy or whatever the case may be, or persistent. You know what I mean? Because let's say when I was working on Broccoli City festivals, I was inviting big wigs, you know what I mean? Like, yo, come out to this festival. Like, I'm gonna hold you down. I'm gonna do everything for you free. Like, I just want you to peep it. But I was showing them value versus just, yo, what's up? Can I hang with you? It was like, nah, I got something of value. So can you come and look at what I'm doing versus can I hang with you? If that makes sense.
No, I completely agree with that. I think, and this is something I'll tell interns, even a former assistant who's now working with us, is like type of branded content, you can have value at so many different levels. And if you understand what your value is, like sometimes you come into a situation where you're just like, man, I really wish this person would hire me. I really wish I could work with this person. And not understanding, once again, like I said, a lens and a perspective, and knowing that you as somebody who's 19 or 20 has just a more solid ear. Like I think Cheryl just mentioned having siblings in college. So much of what I do, we needed a choreographer. This is America. The first thing I do is call my 14-year-old niece, 12-year-old niece, and go, who do you like? And so much value, even if you don't feel like you have that much leverage or anything in a situation, you might just need to look at yourself and go like, well, what about my taste and what about my sensibilities? Because a lot of the times, to be real, there are people in power positions who they can kind of smell the desperation and they sense the desperation. And sometimes you get lucky enough that somebody will help you out, but a lot of the times they just don't want to hear it. I've definitely ignored emails. I looked at something like Broccoli City, and I know Brandon is happy that Donald, at kind of the apex of his career, was able to do it. But that brand that Brandon and his team were able to build was at the point that I think it was an easier sell because of what they were able to build. And I think you see it across brands, from fashion, music, whatever. If you're early and you feel like you have that taste and sensibility and you know where your value lies and you go like, you know what, it's there, it just needs to be scaled up, it translates. And I think to be able to recognize whatever qualities in yourself that you feel like you can present, think about that. And think about that when you have conversations with people that you feel like are in power positions and you want something from. Sometimes persistence is good, but other times to be able to have a very clear message where it doesn't feel like you need to be with them,
Awesome. I think this will be our last question since we do need to wrap things up soon, but are there any last minute gems or major keys, if you will, for the students? Any advice you want to give us before we sign off?
Man, one more time, going back to what Fam just said, man, self-love, man, look in that mirror and love yourself. You know what I'm saying? Everything about yourself, and then get ready for war. Hop out here, be kind to people, be intentional, move with the vision, have that vision in mind. You know what I mean? Like to Fam's point, having a plan, being a manager of your time, of your resources is key. You know what I mean? Like, don't be out here messy and shit. Like, that's so whack. You know what I mean? Like, have it together. You know what I mean? Have your stuff buttoned up. But yet again, don't take yourself so seriously as well. You know what I mean? Have fun, laugh at yourself, hit your knee. Oh shit, hit my knee. Oh, okay, cool. You know what I mean? Like, life is grand, it's popping, everything is amazing. So yeah, keep it going. That's my thing.
I can go next. Two things. One of them I said yesterday on the touring panel. If you're in the room, it's because you belong in the room. I doubted myself a lot and wondered if I belonged in certain places because I was younger or maybe didn't have as much experience as like some of the other people in the room. But if you're in there, it's because you're supposed to be in there. So just believing in yourself, which, obviously is echoing what other people have been saying. And then, I don't know if anyone's seen The Social Dilemma or any of the documentaries recently, but there's a reason why I'm so close with everyone on here and I pick up the phone and I talk to them. I'm connected with them. Don't build your relationships off of social media. Like, I think it's a terrible direction that our society is going into. My daughter's 5 years old and can have a conversation with any adult because I don't really give her a lot of screen time. And I think it's important to really build your relationships with people in an old school way, talking to them on the phone, versus just sending them a DM and liking their stuff on Instagram. Like, there's no way you can build trust with somebody by doing that. So just, be in the moment and talk to people and connect with them.
I'm going to just echo what I said earlier, and don't be afraid to fail. I can't tell you how many times along the way I've thought, oh my God, things just aren't going to work out for me, or, things are headed in the wrong direction. I think if you really believe in yourself and trust your own vision and know what it is that you want and have a direction that you're going, any humps that you find along the way, you'll figure out how to get through them. So, trust your gut, trust where you're going. Like Brandon said, do everything with integrity. People will always remember. You might find yourself in a low place, but if you have been nice to people and been doing the right things, they're going to remember and help you out. And that's honestly how I built most of my career. When I left and went out on my own, it was those relationships that I built. And when I had nothing, having so many people in the business who wanted to help me and wanted to see me succeed, that really helped me jumpstart my career, when I went off on my own. But also, I think, like, never feel like you've made it. Like, even all of us on here, we've all found success in some way, shape, or form, but never feel like you've made it, or like you're better than anybody else, or like it can't all come crumbling down, because it can. So I think, just echoing what everybody on here has said, stay true to yourself and it will come to you.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I think my fellow panelists have done an incredible job. Brandon kicked it off fantastically. Your energy is super infectious, and that's kind of energy we all want to work around all the time. So I think just only last little tidbits, if, in my world, is listen, really just listen to and be observant to what's happening around you. I mentioned earlier asking questions if something interests you, but if there's somebody trying to teach you something, even if it doesn't have to do with why you walked in there, just listen anyways. You never know how it could, lean towards what you want to do. So be observant is what I would say.
Chad, you got anything, or are you?
I mean, all these guys said it. That's all right. And the self-love thing is important. Make a list. Like, make some small goals and big goals. The big ones are going to take a long time to get to. But the small ones add up, and along the way you can feel good. Crossing shit off the list, being like, I did this. Like this. This small goal could be reach out to somebody I'm afraid to. Take a risk. Fail. Go out and ask to go grab a coffee, or in this digital world, ask to have a Zoom call, and I want to pick your brain. I mean, yes, that's persistent, but if you truly feel like you have something to give back, or you have some advice to tell them, or maybe they're managing an artist that you really like, and you do want to pick their brain, but also you want to give them a little bit of insight on an idea that you had for their artist, that maybe they haven't thought of. That's and don't afraid to reach out, and then that's a small goal that you check off the list on your pathway to getting to the big ones. So love yourself through it, and check off the small ones, and just realize that all the people that you're like looking up to, or that you follow on social media or Twitter or Instagram, posting only the good stuff, right? Like, they're only posting the best version of themselves after they've gotten there. They're not giving you the blueprint. They're not giving you all the hard days, work, and all the failures that went along with that. So realize that's all there too. That's part of it, and it's for you to figure it out, to get out there and do what they did. So it's not just a click away. It's not super easy, but it's achievable if you put your mind to it.
And I was gonna say, man, I think, like you said, there is no blueprint. You are the blueprint. Like, in all the situations, you gotta understand, like, I was ready to quit the music industry as a 21-year-old. I started working retail, and a friend of mine made me run his house music label, and that was my trajectory. Like, there's no set trajectory that you can take on that road. I think you try to learn as much as you can. Within that time frame, I watched nothing but the Criterion channel, our Criterion selections, and started like really loving film. And so even now in this space, I'm able to talk about, we're working on a TV show, or we're working on a film. I can give references from a time, 15 years ago, when I had this period of being like, I just want to learn as much as possible. And I think when I say be compassionate with yourself, self-love, whatever you want to call it, that's really what passion is to be able to have those moments where you feel like, fuck, I really don't know if I want to do this. The moment that you feel like I can do this every day, and regardless of, what the day feels like, I still want to do this tomorrow, you found the right thing. And I think you have to also understand it takes time to build that, whether it's people you meet, whether it's things that you're in. Be as technically sound as possible if you can. But I think it's just about a willingness to be open. And I think the panel, they've crossed on everything that I've seen. And just to remember that, there is no set blueprint. You have to find that path, but it's also just be as open as possible when you're on that path.
Awesome. That's a great way to end this. Well, thank you guys all so much for your time and your energy. This is my first panel that I've ever hosted, so I hope to do this again.
Great job.
Congrats. You did a great job, sis.
Thank you. I guess if any of the panelists want to drop social handles in the chat for the students to follow up with you guys or anything you guys want to do, you're not obligated to do anything, but thank you guys so much, and that'll be it.
Thank you.
No, thank y'all.
Thank you so much.